Hi everybody, thanks for joining me, and today's topic is why men only get the black crayon and how that affects you in relationship with them. So I always use this analogy when I'm talking to men so that they can understand the full spectrum of emotional dialogue, emotional language that women have and experience. And it really is quite different than what most men have experienced or understand. So I always say, like there's a pack of crayons, a pack of all the different colours in the world, and men get the black crayon and women get all of the other colours. And at first they sit there and they look at me and they don't quite understand, why I'm using that analogy. So the black crayon is anger. So we're talking about different emotions when we talk about these different coloured crayons. So the black crayon is anger, and that is unfortunate because what that means is that they don't have a dialogue, they don't have the words to use around all of the other emotions that they do experience. From the time that they're very, very small, and I'm talking, we do this to 3 and 4 year old boys. You think about it. Little boy falls over, we go, get up son, it's okay, brush yourself off, you're all right. And, we very quickly teach them not to express a lot of their emotions. And by the time they're, 5, 6, 7, we find we probably are getting quite impatient with them when they fall and hurt themselves or when they express those emotions. And what happens is, we teach them to stuff those emotions down rather than sitting with that emotion, describing the emotion and being able to engage in a dialogue around that emotion, describe the emotion, understand the emotion. And so this is why once we get to adulthood, men think that women are overly emotional. It's like, oh my God, you know what women are like, they're emotional. You hear that all the time, right? So women have got this far broader spectrum of different emotions that they are taught a dialogue around and taught to use. And when they get to adulthood and they're in relationships with men who aren't taught that same dialogue, men will often have this tendency to think that women are overly emotional, and women will often think that men are really shut down emotionally, that they don't experience those emotions, or often they might recognise that they do, but they don't know how to deal with them or to engage with that emotion, and so they stuff it down. The unfortunate thing is what we teach men in replacement of understanding and dialoguing or conversing around all of those other emotions is we teach them to transmute their emotion into anger, and that's the black crayon that I talk about. So if a boy feels fear, by the time he is an adult, we'll have taught him to be angry. If a man feels hurt, he'll often express that as anger. If a man feels jealous, he'll often express that as anger. If a man feels fearful, he'll often express that as anger. And so what you can see happening here, anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is not a primary emotion. They move through some other emotion first to get to anger. Unfortunately for men, because they don't have the same kind of dialogue or recognition around the full spectrum of all of these other emotions, they actually don't even recognise that they've moved through that previous emotion. They move to anger so quickly that anger's actually the only one that they recognise. And in our society today, it's acceptable for a man to feel anger. It's one of the very few emotions that it is acceptable for a man to feel. And so he'll rely heavily on this one acceptable emotion of anger rather than being able to engage and utilise all of the other emotions that he's actually feeling. What does this mean in relationship? Well, obviously it means that, any of those negative emotions, or if he's fearful or hurt, he's likely to transmute that into anger. Obviously, when you're in relationship with a man who can't talk about those emotions, it's very difficult to build connection. obviously it's also going to mean that you've probably got an angry man on your hands here, a man who feels very free to express anger but doesn't have a handle on being able to express or engage or communicate with you about any of those other emotions. Remember, because he's not had the benefit of talking about these emotions from childhood, by the time he gets to adulthood, he's not even going to have the words to describe those emotions. So that's why oftentimes when a woman starts to try and pin a man down about the way that he's feeling, he'll become mute. He'll actually shut down completely because he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't literally have the dialogue or the words to describe what is going on for him. And the response to that is either get angry or shut down. Obviously, it's very, very difficult to build connection when you've got that going on in a relationship, because women really need that level of intimacy in order to feel connected and to desire sex. And so you have a situation where oftentimes men will express connection and intimacy through sex, and women need the connection and intimacy to desire the sex. So it's kind of like a catch-22 situation. Real connection comes from intimacy. It comes from being vulnerable. It comes from sharing the truth of ourselves, the being authentic. And that's often what's missing in a relationship when connection is missing. And I talk to women, and often when they're feeling unfulfilled in a relationship, that's what they talk about being missing. So really desiring to understand and connect with and be vulnerable and authentic and understand each other's inner worlds and inner dialogues, that's intimacy, that's connection. And building of that is what creates a beautiful, connected and deep, loving relationship. Anyway, so that's my theory on the black crayon. It's one that I use a lot when I'm talking to men. I'm going to wind it up for today, just a quick short one. If you would like further information on building connection in your relationship, pop over to liminalcoaching.com.au, or you can seek me out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of the various social medias, for further information. My YouTube clips, obviously, is another way that you can get information. I have a free program called 30 Days of Connection that you're free to sign up for, that will help you to build connection in your relationship. And I also have the Relationship Tune-Up, which is a 6-week program that you work through in your own home in order to build connection in your relationship. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.